Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Before we get into the actual topic of this video, I wanted to clear up some things. Yes, obviously, this is a new style format I'm going through. You can't usually see my face when I'm doing these videos, but I thought it'd help, kind of immerse me in the content with you guys, and I thought it was kind of nice. So I got a webcam. I'm looking at the computer right now. It's kind of weird. I can see myself over there. Second of all, I'm sorry if it focuses in and out. I can't really do anything about that. Second of all, I haven't posted in a while. That's mostly because I've been lazy, but secondly because when I was doing my last videos, I was coming up to a diploma break for my last class, and now that's over, but I started a new class, and I never really got back into it. So I thought I'd do something cool by covering the disturbing movies Iceberg. Now I know this over here, I insert JPEG, is the picture of the disturbing movies Iceberg that everybody's been covering on YouTube. But the people that created that one collaborated with some more Reddit users, and then they made this one, which is an updated version of the original Iceberg. So we're going to be covering this one. To be specific, we're going to be covering the new titles because the old ones have already been covered a gajillion times. Quick disclaimer before we get into this one. What I just said is kind of a lie. The first 4 entries that I'm going to be covering on this Iceberg are ones that have already been covered before, but I just thought they were really interesting, so I wanted to go over them again just to kind of give my own take on them. If you guys just want to skip past that, then go ahead. Also, the first 2 tiers of this Iceberg are not really what I classify as disturbing, so we're going to be kind of moving past that. I'm sorry if you want me to go through those. If you guys want to, you can leave it in the comments, and I will go back, and I will do the first 2 tiers of this Iceberg. But we're jumping right to the 3rd tier, starting off with Salo. Salo? I don't know. Or 120 Days of Sodom, which is a movie based after World War II in Italy, or during World War II in Italy, which follows 4 super rich pieces of human scum as they take 9 adolescent boys and 9 adolescent girls, take them up to their mansion, and they subdue them to physical, mental, and sexual torture. This movie has lots of degrading and demoralizing scenes in it, such as a scene where they tie collars around the kids and make them beg for their food like dogs. I actually had to watch this one because it was readily available. I mean, I didn't have to do anything, but the ones that are kind of readily available, I'd like to watch, and just so I can be the filter, and you guys can get all the good happy time stuff where I explain like the censored version rather than you guys having to watch it. This film actually received a lot, and I mean a lot, of backlash from the general public. Actually, 3 weeks before this movie came out, the director was murdered because it shows sexual abuse of adolescents, which means they're less than 18, which means it's pretty much illegal. This movie was banned in quite a few countries, but I just kind of wanted to get, I'm going to go through these first 4, like, pretty quick here, just because people have talked about them a lot, so I don't really want to bore you. Next up, we're talking about Martyrs. It follows 2 young women who were subjected to abuse as kids as they go on this giant revenge tale. But sadly, shit hits the fan and it goes downhill real quick. I lowered myself down a little bit because I was bending over to talking to my microphone. This group that refers to themselves as a philosophical society who seeks to know about the afterlife or something, or what did I write? To discover the secrets of the afterlife. That's what they want. So they take these 2 poor girls and they just abuse them. It's just a bunch. It's like a torture film. Like, why is this made? Actually, was a pretty good watch, to be honest. I think the cinematography is really well done, and the effects made it actually quite disturbing. I mean, go figure, it's the disturbing Iceberg, but it was all right. I would give it a decent little 8 out of 10. Definitely would recommend you watch it for yourselves, though. Next up, okay, this one really got me, and I hope that I pronounce it correctly. I'm gonna look at it because I don't want to memorize it. I'm gonna try and keep eye contact, but my stuff's over there, so don't get angry if I'm looking over here. Shouju Tsubaki. Shouju Tsubaki is a banned anime that follows a little girl named Midori. After finding her mother dead one day, it's actually a really graphic scene when she does find her mother. She's like a rotting corpse almost. I don't know how long. That's literally where it picks up. Like within the first minute, she discovers her mom's corpse. and it's been rotting. It seems like it's been rotting for days. There's rats inside of her, eating her out, going through her flesh and everything. It's not a very nice scene. Midori then leaves the house and meets this stranger who takes her to the circus. And at the circus, she gets kidnapped by the crew of performers. I know lots of people who are circus performers have abnormalities. So these guys are kind of creepy looking. But they kidnap her and sexually, physically, and mentally abuse her, and it's really hard to watch. There's this scene with puppies, little puppers. They're in a box, and they're so cute. And Midori's going out, and she's feeding these little puppies who wait under this little dock for her, and it's so cute. And then one of the circus performers finds out that Midori's sneaking out. And oh boy, those little puppers don't last long under the heel of her boot. So if you guys are squeamish for animal abuse, I would not recommend watching this. I'm joking about it now because I'm trying to make this video as lighthearted as possible, because the topics do get progressively deeper and deeper, darker and darker. We start off pretty lighthearted here. Some of the ones that I covered that I've never heard of, some of them are pretty screwed up. So just a warning of caution now. If the stuff I've already talked about has kind of made you squeamish, you might want to click off just for viewer discretion. But if you're not going to click off, then join me on the ride, broski. Besides all of the animal abuse and the brutality that they use against this poor little 12-year-old girl, it's actually quite a fascinating anime, and I personally really enjoyed it. It's actually pretty short. It was like a 50-minute clip. I just searched it up on Google. The whole point of it was made by a person who had very good intentions. The director wasn't a very screwed up man. He just wanted to show what the unsugar-coated version of child sex trafficking looked like in the real world, and he perfectly depicted that with this anime, and I would definitely recommend watching it if you are not faint of heart and you're okay with seeing little puppers get hurt. Okay, so for the last entry, let me just take a quick sip of my carbonated water. Not sponsored. For the last entry that isn't a new addition to the Iceberg, we have a Serbian film. A Serbian film follows a aging porn star who's trying to get out of the business. He's giving it one last hurrah, and he's like, okay, I'm going to get out, because he's done with this. He's gone broke. He's just like, this is not my line of work. Get me the hell out of here. And then this businessy dude is like, okay, well, do you want to come and make snuff films for me? For those of you that don't know what snuff films are, they're like real life footage of people being killed. So this is stuff that's transferred around. You can find this on LiveLeak or transferred around on the dark web. It's just not nice stuff. But he's like, do you want to make snuff films? And he was like, okay. The snuff films start off pretty standard, so it's kind of what he expected. Obviously, snuff films involves him killing the person that he is doing the deed with, because he is a porn star, so you have to kind of add that in there. You know that he's, you know what happens, or maybe you don't, but think of how kids are made. That's what happens, but involve murdering. And they progressively get worse and worse. This guy, eventually, the main protagonist, can he even be called a protagonist? He's not really a hero for sticking his dick in people, but anyways, this guy says, I've had enough. This has progressed past my limits, and he says no. The producer guy says no. So the main protagonist tries to escape, run out of the warehouse, but then he is drugged with enough Viagra to kill a goddamn horse. This guy, he sees this random person on the street, and he starts jerking off to them because he's just so hormonally messed up. I don't know. It was kind of funny, but anyway, that's pretty much the whole premise of the movie. Guy gets hired to make snuff films. They get progressively worse. Guy doesn't want to do snuff films anymore, tries to escape, gets drugged with Viagra. He loves the Viagra, though. This movie is actually banned in lots of places, just like lots of these other films. I'm like, that's going to be a big disclaimer. Big disclaimer. Lots of these movies are banned. That doesn't mean you can't watch them. I watched a majority of them, but just make sure it's not banned in your country. I don't know what the legal things are around that, but just like, you don't want the smoke, do ya? Okay, so now getting on to the new things, the brand new additions, we're starting off with Antichrist. So after this couple loses their child because they were doing the dirty, and the kid hopped up on the windowsill and just kind of chucked himself out. Anyways, their kid dies, and to deal with their troubled marriage and their own personal issues, they decide to go out and live in a cabin in the woods. There's this whole scene where this guy's like, "What's your biggest fear?" He's talking to his wife, by the way. This is dude. His wife's over there. He's like, "What's your biggest fear?" And she's like, I just can't stand the woods." And he's like, "That's great. Let's go to the woods then." So anyways, they go on this wood they go on his wood. So they go into this cabin in the woods and they begin living there the first couple of days. And the man progressively gets worse and more horrific visions, while the wife, she manifests increasingly violent sexual behavior and sadomasochism. In fact, this sadomasochism and sexual manifestation that the woman, has going for her, gets so serious that she becomes unhinged and she starts hurting herself and her husband out of her own pleasure. Maybe, I don't know. I would definitely give this film a watch. It won a bunch of awards when it first came out and was shown at the film festivals and everything. I found it pretty interesting. Definitely disturbing. Just kind of not my cup of tea. I mean, I'm not a big boy I'm not like a slasher guy either. I'm not like, okay, I like watching people get stabbed. I kind of like the mind screwy ones. This one was that, but just a lot of, just a lot of. Come and See is a Soviet anti-war film about Nazi Germany's occupation in Belarus and how these atrocities committed by the German soldiers are seen through the eyes of a Belarusian teenager named Fliora. That's a nice name. Who, against his mother's wishes, joins the Belarusian resistance. This film has a lot of graphically depicted wartime deaths, as well as legitimate piles of corpses that are shown in the film. I think it's quite interesting to somebody who's like, I want to see an unsugar-coated, uncensored version of real-life war. The film that I would, compare it to in today's standards is Hacksaw Ridge, which is actually a pretty well-known film about like the wartime stuff. I can't remember exactly, but that one was pretty graphic. I would kind of compare it to that one. A little bit more disturbing. The imagery is a little bit more disturbing, but it is an older film, so the effects aren't nearly as good as the ones in Hacksaw Ridge, but I still don't recommend this one for somebody who is faint of heart. I think the most disturbing portion of this film is the surrealism and hyperrealism kind of combination that happens with it, where you're kind of just like, okay, like, you can actually watch the film and you're like, well, now I feel like I'm actually watching somebody's corpse bleed out in front of me. So it is disturbing in that manner, but I guess that means they did a fantastic job. And I would recommend this, just not to somebody who is squeamish. The Green Inferno is a film about a group of student activists who travel to the Amazon forest to save the rainforest, right? Sounds great. Great motives, great intentions. Oh boy. After their plane engine catches on fire and the whole thing goes down, they end up in the middle of this unpopulated, unknown area of the Amazon where there's these group of savages. I can literally say savages. I know that's not a very, universally used term for nowadays standards, but these people are actually savages. They mutilate them, they sacrifice them, they torture them, it's messed up. They draw like face paintings on them and do terrible things. The movie that I can relate this one most to is a film from like the 1980s, I think, called The Cannibal Holocaust, which is considered the first found footage film of all time. In that actual movie, they refer to the Amazon as the Green Inferno, so I don't know if this film is like a reference to that one or like supposed to be a sequel, but very closely related. Just think Cannibal Holocaust up to like today's standards for graphics, because it is very well made. Camera quality and visual effects are very surreal, very nice, very hyper-realistic, but it doesn't really have that grainy, kind of edgy found footage feel that the first Cannibal Holocaust had. Rather, it actually looks like a properly filmed movie on like high digital cameras. That's literally the whole premise of the movie, is their plane crashes, land in this area, the savages, do stuff to them, and then okay, so this one I actually found quite intriguing. I know the other ones have kind of just been like but this one was really cool. The Poughkeepsie, I'm looking at it because I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. The Poughkeepsie, which is like, this is like a well-known place, Poughkeepsie, New York. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry. Poughkeepsie, New York. This film is a pseudo-documentary film where it starts off with this police squad breaking into this guy's house and finding 800 VHS tapes. The VHS tapes have actually been recorded by the serial killer himself, Edward Carver. So we watch as we go through these tapes step by step in a super cool montage, documentary style thing. Super amazing. I found it super interesting. You're looking at the murders through the eyes of the murderer. I know that sounds terrifying, but you see the real life reactions of the victims and how they respond to this dude in their house with a blade who's gonna stab them. It's so surreal. I watched it and I was like, this is extremely fascinating. It was like Cops on steroids, all right? You watch that and you're like, whoa, police chase? That's epic. Guy getting arrested? That's cool. He was gonna shoot the police officer? What? But now we're like, oh my god, he's actually murdering her. So I would 100% recommend this to anybody who's kind of into that documentary style. I know I'm really into that kind of stuff. I've seen Faces of Death, Traces of Death, banned from television. It's kind of sort of like that. I wouldn't place it in the same category as those. I know those are lower down on this iceberg, but they've already been covered a million times. I'm just kind of making comparisons here. I thought it was super cool, but none of those ones contained films of people murdering other guys. So I think this one's worth a watch. The police officers don't actually know that the films are recorded by Edward Carver himself, because every single time he is in the frame of the camera, he is very well disguised, and the whole film is about them going around and trying to find the locations of the victims. So super cool. I was just kind of gushing over the documentary style side of this, and I kind of just skipped over the whole plot of the movie. So, sorry. Next up, oh my god. Now we're past the cool stuff and getting into the screwed up stuff. Now we have, oh boy, probably one of the worst entries on the tier 3 list. This is it in its original language. It translates to wedding troth. And oh boy, why? Why make this? Like, what were your intentions? This follows a guy with a mental disorder who lives out on a rural farm in Belgium. This guy has an intimate relationship with his pig. After rolling around in manure with this pig, he does acts of stuff to the animal that cannot be spoken of, and when the pig gives birth to these human pig babies, he tries to become the pig's kid's father. He's like, hey little piggy, like, hey sport, you want to go fishing? Hey sport, want to play catch? No, the pigs deny him. They're like, I don't want you to be my dad. And he gets so angry that they don't want to be his dad that he hangs them all the piglets. He hangs them. Sadly, I didn't get to watch this film. Oh, boo-hoo. I had to do reading instead. But that is pretty much the premise. There's also lots of caprophagia in this film. So if you know what that means, don't look it up if you don't. But there's lots of that in this film. And I don't know what the point of this movie is, but that is pretty much the premise of the film. Gaio Tokyo Fish Attack is an anime about sharks and fish and sea snakes and just every type of sea creature growing spider legs, coming onto land and killing everybody. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's like Sharknado, but they got legs now, and they're terrorizing the city. Yes, it has graphic depictions of blood, and there's some disturbing films where people are getting like eaten and stuff. But if you've watched Attack on Titan, you'll be fine, all you weebs out there. Okay, next up on the list is Terrifier. Terrifier is a disturbing, bloody, gory, fun birthday bash, amazing fun time slasher. It's like taking Friday the 13th or Halloween or Black Christmas and just ramping it up to 1,000. Terrifier follows a guy dressed as a clown who refers to himself as Art the Clown. This Art the Clown character terrorizes people on Halloween night specifically the main protagonists, who are just two teenage girls. Wow, so cliche, right? Super original. Good job. The film has a little bit of finesse on it. I think they did a pretty fantastic job. Rather than just being your generic slasher, they took it and made a big spin on it and made it gorier than usual. That's pretty much it. A little bit more disturbing, but with the small budget the movie was on, it actually did pretty well, and I think it's worth a watch for not just the Grindhouse fans out there, but horror fans alike. The Golden Glove tells the story of the notorious serial killer from Germany named Fritz Honka. Fritz Honka killed 4 women in between 1970 and 1975 and hid their body parts, which he chopped up into little bits around his apartment. The film depicts his murders in gruesome detail and graphically shows how he chops up his victims. And since the film just came out in 2019, the effects are relatively up to standard, up to date, and they are good. They are intense. I guess you can say good. They did a pretty fantastic job on the effects for this movie, and the reason why it's called the Golden Glove is because that's the name of the bar that Fritz Honka used to go to pick up his womanly victims. Next up on the list is Ken Park. Ken Park, on the surface, is a film about a bunch of skateboarding chads going about their life. But the underlying message that is portrayed in this film is the struggle that teenagers go through on a daily basis. This film covers exploitation, rejection, and abuse, and a wide range of other emotions. The thing about this film that was kind of weird for me was it made itself out to be like a moral justice film. It's like, we're finally shedding light on this topic that's been kind of pushed under the rug for a while and nobody really wants to talk about it. I wouldn't necessarily put that past them, but just kind of saying, okay, you're gonna come out here and you're just kind of like, okay, so we're showing a bunch of teenagers having a gangbang and we're showing them smoke a bunch of weed, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like moral justice to me. But I think it is kind of a good film to watch because it does kind of delve into the struggles of the teenage lifestyle, and it does kind of show the uncensored and unsugar-coated versions that we all just kind of portray. Like whenever we're thinking about teenagers, we're always just like, yeah, they're all right. I think everybody goes through their teenage struggles, but people don't actually really elaborate on that kind of stuff. So I think it's worth a watch. As we're coming on to the last film of this video, forgot to mention that I'm doing this in tears. So sorry, I don't really have the time to sit here for one long sitting and record me 3 hours of talking and make like a 10-page script about all the stuff I need to say, but sorry. The last film for this video is I Spit on Your Grave. When this entry was put on the Iceberg, I didn't know which one it was talking about. There's 2 I Spit on Your Graves. Wow, that's a really weird sentence to say. There's the OG, which is from 1978, and then the 2010 remake. The 2010 remake seemed to get more attention than the original did, so I assumed it was the 2010 remake, so I did a video on that one. Plus, it's kind of more up to date, so it's just kind of like, they have the same premise. It's like the same movie, like redone. Obviously, that's what a remake is. So I did the newer version. So this film follows a girl as she goes out to a cabin in the woods and is followed by a group of guys. These guys come into the cabin, sexually, physically, and mentally abuse her and torture her, and it's really hard to watch. But she escapes by falling into a river and then plots her revenge. And then after all these terrible things have been done to her, she comes back and tortures them and emasculates some of them, which you guys don't know what that means. Just like imagine Gordon Ramsay chopping a sausage, but the sausage isn't a sausage. That's pretty much the movie. Dudes go out, cabin, she gets her revenge, does even worse things back to them, eventually murders them all. And yeah, this film didn't do too great at the box office, so do with that information what you'd like. Definitely I wouldn't per se recommend it, but I mean, if you want to see a guy's dick get chopped off, then I mean, that's something that'll stick with me forever. Anyways, that's the end of the Iceberg. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be expecting a lot more videos coming soon. I actually really enjoyed making this video. That's why I wanted to cover all the new topics, but I also wanted to cover the original 4 because I wanted to kind of get my own take on them. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you made it this far, that's crazy. What are you still doing here? You have a life or something? Why are you watching me? Get out of here, dude. But thank you for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.